Welcome to Next Steps, a podcast from Blackhawk Church. We believe that following Jesus is a lifelong journey, so no matter where you're at, there's always a next step to take. Each week on this podcast, we'll create space for real conversations about the questions we wrestle with, the challenges we face, and the hope we find in Jesus. Our goal isn't to have it all perfectly figured out, but to walk faithfully towards Jesus together. We're so glad you're joining us. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Next Steps podcast. Anne's already laughing at me. This is not starting off well. This is the Care Ministry Takeover of the Next Steps podcast with your temporary hosts, Alicia Penning and
Kierce.
All right. And special guest with us, Isaac Mitchell, who is the Associate Director of Production. We just told him we're going to ask him some questions.
I know. Okay, so we're so excited to be here for the Care Takeover of the Next Steps podcast. And today, Alicia, what are we talking about?
We are talking about how to show up when you don't know what to say.
Yes. I think this is something that we often hear in Care of like, ooh, I know that person is having a hard time. I know they could use a friend or a listening ear, or maybe prayer, but I don't really know how to pray. I don't know what to say. And so it's really common when someone shares something hard that we might freeze or feel like we don't know how to respond.
Yeah.
So,
and we so desperately want to say the right thing.
Absolutely.
So, I'm like, always our intentions are good. And you don't know what to say. Sometimes you say nothing at all. And sometimes you say something that afterwards you're like, why in the world did I say that?
Isaac, have you ever said something where you were like, oh my gosh, palm to forehead, why did I say that?
At least once a day.
Today already?
Probably.
I don't believe it.
Okay.
I don't believe it, Isaac.
If not already, it's coming on this podcast. So.
Oh, we'll wait for it. Well, the good news is today we're here to share. You don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
You don't have to know what to say. And I think one of the things that I feel like kind of sets someone free is releasing the responsibility, because you know what? You don't have to fix it.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's one of the, when something gets difficult for somebody and suddenly you realize, oh, a friend is really in a hard time or there's a crisis in their life, we often, at least me, the impulse to step in and fix something is really, really strong. Or even the pressure to feel like I need to say the exact right thing in those moments can be really heavy. But it is the most helpful thing and the most freeing thing, just to realize like, I actually don't need to fix this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like when we care, we want it to be better. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times the things that somebody's sharing that are really painful, I don't have the ability to even make that better. Mm. But we want to throw things at it, or we want to jump in before they're done sharing and say like, oh, have you thought about?
Yes, the list of, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you thought about this?
Or when it happened to me, or I know somebody who, instead of just providing the space for the person to share.
Yeah, which is usually the most helpful thing. Most of the time, I think people don't actually, even though sometimes as people are communicating a difficult time that they're going through, if it's a urgent need, they communicate it like they're looking for answers. And really, even though they're communicating that way, that might not actually be what they even want. Yeah. They just need the space to talk about it.
Yeah.
And have the sense that someone is really listening with the intent to understand in a deep way.
Yeah.
And to validate their experience. And
to be seen, to be heard by another person really helps you to feel like you're not alone. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think, Alicia, you are a great listener. And I know it's something that you've worked hard at.
I have worked hard at it, yeah.
Like you've learned concrete
I still work hard at it. It's not natural.
Well, we'll ask your husband. He's coming in next. And we're going to ask it. No. I think, or better yet, maybe one of your teenagers.
Yes, you should
How
ask
does
my
Mom
teenagers.
listen? No, but I think, like providing the space, unrushed, unhurried, really seeking to understand what someone is sharing. Are there kind of tips that you might give us for how to listen well?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think the first thing when you're listening is just to realize, okay, my main goal in listening is to understand that. And we were talking about this before. I think
Yes.
sometimes if someone's sharing something that we deeply disagree with, if there can also be this pressure, the thought of like, okay, I must counter
the
this.
untruth.
Yes, they're
Yes.
not believing true things about themselves, about another person, about God. But I think when you're listening to understand, you can sort of take that pressure off.
Yes.
Like the goal is really to understand. And so often when you're listening, and it is really common when people are kind of in crisis. Of course, we all, myself included, we believe things that are not true. It's really easy to believe lies about God when you're in a lot of pain. And so as someone is giving voice to those, you don't have to counter it with like, oh, of course God is loving, when they're expressing that they feel so angry at him and unseen by him. I think, what we want to do rather than counter it is just understand. So let them share. My best listening skill usually is to give someone space to share and then to invite them to share more. So instead
How
of
do you do
jumping
that?
in, you just simply say, what else? Or keep going. Tell me more. Like something like that. So I often will say
over repeatedly 2-3 times.
Depending on the situation,
Okay.
if depending on the intensity, I often will say, oh, tell me more, say more. I do that actually. I hope my teenagers would recognize that I do this, but I do that a lot with them actually when they're sharing something intense, or I do this a lot with friends. I do it a lot when my husband and I are having a fight. We do this with each other.
We never
we never.
Wait a minute. Isaac, you're a newlywed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, less than a year.
Less than a year. Y'all have had an argument though, right?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
So here's my tip for a happy marriage.
Hot tip.
Hot tip. When your wife's mad and is telling you about it, say, tell me more.
Yeah. You know what? She actually says that to me. And for sometimes that makes me more like, not mad, but I'm also just kind of like, I've said everything I need to say.
You don't have any more.
She
was a good listener.
Sometimes.
You don't have any more.
Yeah. Well, and that does happen if they're, when they're like, actually, that's it. And then the next best tip is to summarize what you've heard the person say.
Yeah.
So
to make sure that you understand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, for instance, in that situation where someone is really expressing, for instance, they're so angry about something that's happened. And if they're expressing that they're angry with God and how could God do this to me, after you've invited them to say more, if they're like, actually, that's it. I'm just really mad at him.
Yeah, it clarifies.
Then you can say, it sounds like you're really mad at God right now. And you really feel like he's not hearing you. And so that doesn't mean you yourself are agreeing with it. It just means you're understanding what they're saying. And that's really the goal of listening. That's what makes someone a good listener as opposed to like a wise counselor or something like that. A good listener listens to understand.
I am glad that you brought that up because this was, I think, Pete Scazzaro is in emotionally healthy relationships taught me this. It really unlocked something for me, is that listening does not mean agreement.
Yeah.
That someone can be saying something outrageous, untrue. They can be exaggerating. They can be, right, we're upset. Something terrible has happened. They're feeling devastated and they're saying things like God isn't with me. God doesn't love me. He doesn't care about me. He won't provide for me. Like he's turned his back on me. Or they're saying something about someone else or whatever circumstance. It's that you might not agree with their point of view, providing them a listening ear and inviting them to tell you more and reflecting what you've heard does not mean that you agree with what they're saying.
Yeah. And often in crisis, I feel like people don't actually agree with what they themselves are saying sometimes. So, if someone's and when you reflect it back to them and summarize, like, oh, it sounds like you're really angry with God right now, and you feel like he is totally abandoned you.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
Yeah.
And someone will say, yeah, that's how I feel. But even as they are hearing that can start the process of them thinking like, is that what I really
true?
believe? Or is that just where I'm at in the moment? So I do think when we're caring for somebody, it really takes the pressure off of us when we realize I don't have to convince them of what's true. I just need to be present with them with where they're at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's really helpful because as a listener, I'm not really responsible. And I think too, it can show like an act of trust. Like I believe that God is working in this and I believe he can take it and I believe he will move. And I trust in that.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to fix it myself. I don't have to fix it and I don't have to have the right answer, but I'm going to show up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be present.
Yeah.
And hopefully the person who I'm listening to won't feel alone in the midst of a hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have, is there anything that comes to mind practically to you? I even wonder, like, when you've had a hard time, like either of you really, Isaac, if you want to jump in, but like
we're pulling him in,
right?
We're roping him in.
You thought you were here to like produce something, but you're being put on the spot. But like I think we can think about times where we've been frustrated or hurt and somebody gave us a quick answer or they rebutted it with scripture or they like in a way that it felt diminishing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think anytime, I always, whether someone says it to me or I hear someone say it to someone else, I feel like there's sort of these like cliched responses that just make me cringe when someone says like,
what are they? Let's see if we can come up with some.
Yes. Yes. I'm like,
hey, Isaac, there's
I think when someone
God
says,
wouldn't give you more than you can handle.
That's a terrible one. Yes. Well, God's giving you this because he knows you can handle it. I heard someone say that to someone recently. And I just thought, oh, that's not always true. That's not in the Bible.
That's not true. Or it can't be that bad.
Yeah. Yes. It can't be that bad.
It can't be that bad, Alicia.
Yeah. I think another one I hear is everything happens for a reason. That's another one. And, it's kind of a misguided affirmation of God's like sovereignty and control.
Yeah.
Like, of course, God is in control. And yet giving someone kind of that kind of pat answer is often like not helpful in the midst of something hard.
Yeah, that's hard.
And can you think of a time when someone really cared for you well?
Absolutely, I can. I think I shared last episode that there was a care volunteer who I journeyed with for a number of years. It was sort of hilarious because when I first came on staff at Black Hawk, I think it was around maybe 2013, I moved into a position that would be overseeing her. And I was like, wait a minute. We can all agree that I'm not actually overseeing this wise and wonderful woman. But I said, okay, I'll take this job if it means I can still meet with her.
Oh, I love that.
And, but the thing, when I think back to the way that she cared for me, she just listened to whatever. There were times where I was truly ridiculous. And I would exaggerate and I would just go on. And she was patient with me and she didn't always correct me, and she was faithful in praying for me. And I really appreciated that she never took over responsibility for it, because what this situation actually required was for me to be honest with God about where I had gone off in wrong directions and where I needed to make corrections. And I needed to have ownership and responsibility over that. Oh. And so I think her approach in not moving in to fix it, not telling me what to do, she allowed me to step up and to take responsibility for the things that God was inviting me to really move towards. And so, yeah, I think she is a great example of how to care for someone well through listening and prayer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think of a time when someone really did this well for me too. And there was a time when I was pregnant with when Adam and I were expecting our third child, and we had kind of a moment of crisis with the pregnancy, and it just wrecked us emotionally for about 48 hours. And I can remember the people who just, like, we had a couple of friends that just showed up at our house that night, and they didn't, I mean, they were good enough friends. I think they texted like, hey, we're stopping over, and just stopped over with a meal. And it wasn't like they were trying to talk us down for something, from something or anything like that. They just knew we'd had a really, they just were there.
Yeah, it sounds like you were scared.
Yeah. And so, so I think, and I was thinking of this, like, there's really been these a handful of crises in my life when people were just there and they didn't give me answers. They just really gave me their presence. Yeah. And that's what's really meant the most, because I really needed to find the answers for myself. But I needed the support of knowing that there would be people who would walk through it with me. And that was really meaningful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, did they feel awkward? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they did, right? Yeah. Sometimes I think people are like, oh, wow, that would make me nervous, right? To walk through that door, to be present with someone in that circumstance. And it's like, yeah, that's real. Well, sometimes you feel nervous or awkward.
Yeah, and these friends who showed up, they didn't have children. In fact, they were both single. Okay. And so I think of putting myself in that situation, I'd be like, I do not know how to step into this. I don't know what these friends are dealing with, but they came anyway. Yes. Just to be with us in that situation.
Right. Caring isn't about being perfect. It's not necessarily about having the exact same shared experience. Mm-hmm. I think of a hard time in my life where I received several people had reached out really appropriately in ways that really spoke to me. And maybe you were thinking of this because I've shared this with you before, that when I stopped to think about it, I realized that all three of them had experienced cancer treatment. And I was like, oh, interesting. I did not have cancer, but I wondered if their journey, although different than mine, if that somehow equipped them to know how to reach out and be present for me in a really meaningful way.
Yeah, just taught them the power of being there.
Right? Yeah. Right, but your willingness to try, your willingness to show up, I think matters a lot more than doing it exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, I was sort of brainstorming some other things that are helpful to avoid and helpful to do when someone's going through something difficult. And so we can link some of those in the show notes for this, but some categories that are helpful to think through when someone's going through something difficult is to avoid minimizing what their experience is. So you don't want to compare it to anything else. Like I think it's not helpful to say, well, at least it's not this. Or even to say, well, at least you still have so much to be grateful for. Like that is true. And actually gratitude journaling can be very helpful at some point, but usually when people are in the throes of pain, not as helpful to bring up. minimizing, I think, that phrase, God never gives us more than we can handle, that can be really minimizing too. So avoiding that. Another thing to avoid in general is kind of trying to explain the suffering that someone's going through. Like, we don't want to talk about how everything happens for a reason or give theological pat answers. Like, don't you feel, Anne, like it's one thing to assure someone of God's presence, like to say, I'm here with you and the Lord is here with you too. But to try to explain something theologically in the moment, like, is rarely helpful. I don't know. What's your thought about that?
Yeah. I think in that moment, that can be a different part of our brain, even, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Just kind of, knowing if someone is kind of flooded or overcome with a lot of strong emotions about a situation that feels urgent or critical, that they're maybe not quite using that part of their brain at that moment, and that will come. We don't need to rush.
Yeah.
Right? Because providing kind of like pointing one another back to the Bible, to the Word, I think is really important and necessary and helpful on the journey, but maybe not in that exact moment.
Yeah. What are some other things that we want to avoid saying? Avoiding like timelines or pressure for someone, people go through difficult seasons, and it can sometimes, like, a crisis can last for like, for days or sometimes weeks. We recently went through a training where they were like, a crisis is short term.
Yeah.
But it can sometimes last longer than we want it to.
Right.
Or a season of pain. And so, like, you don't want to put pressure on people to somehow solve their problem or get through it quickly, or to move forward before they're ready to. Anything else that comes to mind with that? Or other things, big things to avoid, Anne, when someone's going through a difficult time?
I think we want to make sure that we're not promising things that God doesn't promise.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
I think that can help us to feel better.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know how long it'll last, and we don't know how things will resolve, and we don't know what God will do or with or through a situation. And so I think it's important that we don't, promise things that we really can't.
Yeah, I think and this is a confusing thing. I wonder if we could talk about this a little bit. We didn't talk about this beforehand, so I don't want to put you on the spot here.
Ooh.
I do feel like...
Are you putting me on the spot?
I'm going to put you on the spot. Maybe we could give this one to Isaac.
I thought we were going to team up and put Isaac on the spot.
Give it to me. I'm ready.
You're ready? Are you ready?
What is it? What's the spot?
Well, I do sometimes hear people talk about when they're going through something hard to equate like an outcome with their level of faith. Like, I know that God responds to prayers that are prayed with faith.
Right.
And so I just must not have enough faith.
Right. That's really dangerous and hurtful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about that? Say more, Anne. Anne's looking at me like, oh, you really put me on the spot about this.
Yeah. I feel like I can think back to folks that I have talked to over the years who have received that message from people who are really well-meaning.
Yeah.
That there must be something wrong in their relationship with God if they're experiencing hardship.
Yeah.
And I think that's dangerous territory. Also, I'll just say, as I kind of alluded to before, I think there have been times in my life where things were pretty out of order and I needed to make some correction. And because of that, like, things in my life to look pretty out of order.
Yeah.
And so, that's just really tender ground.
Yeah, it can be difficult to suss out because sometimes, like, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's like sometimes we're experiencing consequences of our decisions.
Right. I certainly have.
And we can suffer because of decisions that we've made.
Right.
And sometimes there can be things that are happening that really are out of our control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of that's going to be answered with kind of a quick comment about, about how if you had more faith, well, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it does make me think of like the Apostle Paul, and is it 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians, where he talks about the thorn in his flesh, and he prayed for the Lord like 3 times, God, will you take this away? Will you take this away? And God said no, and ultimately said no, like not just wait. You know, sometimes God says yes to our prayers, sometimes no, sometimes not yet, like wait. And to Paul, it wasn't even wait. It was, I'm not taking this away in this lifetime. And Paul was not lacking in faith when he prayed for that. God just didn't want to take away that suffering. And so I think that's where, like, over time, as you're in a situation, like, people who know you, who will be honest with you about your part in whatever you're going through. And, people are courageous enough about that to be honest with you, but also can help point you to, like, there's plenty of people in the Bible who suffered not as a result of their own decisions, just for whatever reason, God allowed it.
And there are no easy answers there.
Yeah, there's no easy answers there.
So I wonder if it's time to wrap up this episode.
Oh, gosh.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
We've got a lot of more great stuff to get to.
We've got more great stuff. Yep.
Next
coming
week,
episodes.
We're going to be talking about, like, going a little bit deeper into some of the struggles that people face, the things that we don't talk about that we probably should talk about a little bit more. So we are looking forward to next week. And we'll hear from you then.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Next Steps. Don't forget to check out the show notes for a list of resources if you'd like to keep the conversation going. If you want to learn more about how to get connected at Blackhawk or simply find tools to help you grow, check out blackhawk.church/hub. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. Until next time, let's keep following Jesus together.